It is perfectly okay to cope with what transpired the other day, yesterday morning, when Jan, or it wasn't yesterday morning, it was about yesterday afternoon. It depends on where you are located in this world. But for me, yesterday afternoon, Jan versus Navajo Sterling. I was coping after the fact. Actually, I had no idea what was going to go on. I could see Navajo taking away that first round, but then a lot more ended up happening. And now I'm coping because, well, when we look at it as a whole, what happened, what led up to this event, there was a few things that happened. First, it was supposed to be a rematch between Jan Blachowicz and Bogdan Guskov, but that did not happen. Instead, Bogdan took on a risk of his own against Magomed Ankalaev, so Navajo Sterling took on his risk, which was him fighting Jan basically on home turf. Completely different matchup altogether. Someone who's a lot more versatile and nuanced with what they do, as opposed to Bogdan, tends to lean back and throw very wide. So that was one of the few things that happened. But before that, there was back to that Bogdan and Jan rematch. Them trying to get that off the ground for a little while now, but a lot of hiccups in between being injury. For example, Jan in this photo, surgery has been done to Jan. This was around April, right around the time that Carlos Oberg won the title off of Yuri. Bit of a fluky situation. A fluky situation in that he got injured, but not a fluky situation in that Yuri responded the way he did. So those things happen. An injury. That's the beginning of this cope session, is me talking about an injury that happened recently. Of course, this is not the first injury. And years ago, a little before his Alexander Rakic rematch, or what was supposed to be, he got injured to both shoulders, or he had been dealing with that for a while. And now he wanted to get the surgery to repair those two shoulders. And in between that, between him and his comeback fight against Carlos Oberg, who was now the current champion at light heavyweight, he was uncertain of whether he would return to fighting or retire completely, because the rehab was a new kind of pain, forbidden territory. He had never been there, and he didn't like being there and didn't see a possibility or a route for him to be great, because that would be the only reason why he would reintroduce himself into the UFC or MMA, is so that he could continue to aspire for greatness. But that was out of the question for a little while, until things eventually resolved and he got his fight with Carlos Oberg. But it doesn't matter if he was dealing with all those injuries, pre-existing injuries, and now the knee injury, and you just have to come to grips with it. And Navajo, he is good. That is the fact, or matter of fact, he is good. He is good. He is I don't know exactly what he is, but he's Israel Adesanya. I guess he'd be albino Israel Adesanya. They joked about that a little bit. He's a bit of that. He is skilled, but he is slow. I still believe he's slow, but a hair faster than Jan. A hair faster than an injured Jan. Okay, I'm coping again. But Navajo is good. He has a lot of tools. He got active immediately in that fight. What he did was he targeted the leg. Jan, I imagine he'd have mobility issues. Actually, no, I'm thinking about it. It was the left leg that had gone out. It was the knee for Jan. And in that fight between him and Navajo immediately targeted the left leg. He immediately targeted it inside and also a little bit outside, but more so inside. And Jan, he was raising his leg a little bit, trying to check it. But I don't know if that was working entirely, because Navajo was still getting off those shots, and he seemed to not care about being checked or not. He was okay with going shin to shin, kind of a Jan type of flair to him, interestingly enough. But that was not what got him the fight, or maybe that is what did it. It contributed it. But there was a point later in that round, the first round, only went one round, where Navajo was doing this thing. It's kind of a signature move of him, where he teases like he's going to throw up a jab or something with his left hand, but instead, what he plans on doing is, depending on how his opponent reacts, where their hand is, well, his ultimate goal is to swat that hand down, to bring it down, to just open up an additional lane and make sure that there was no chance that he continues this attack, that if he continues and goes from left to right and now opens up on the right side, or he'd be open on the left side because he's using the right side, but there's no chance for them to counter, at least with their right side. So he did that, and he targeted the body first time around. Second time around, he went atop, and what that ended up doing, it chinned Jan, kind of, and knocked him back, and knocked him from one side of the cage to the other. And from there, Navajo was able to get on top of him. He was on the ground, able to elbow him, cut him open, and then ground and pound, stand up a little bit, posture a little bit, and ground and pound, and finish the fight. And Jan was bleeding. He was gushing like a gusher. That was the unfortunate reality, but it showcased that Navajo isn't a one-trick pony. He's not relying on one-hitter quitter power. He's nuanced. He has a game plan. He knew that Jan had this injury to his leg, and he made use of that. He targeted it immediately, and then, of course, he wanted to... Just a smart thing in general. It doesn't apply to just Jan, but for any fighter, if you reduce or limit the attacks or their potential defenses, let's say you take away their right hand, or in this case, he took away Jan's right hand, so he couldn't block, but he also couldn't counter with that hand. And then that allows you to set up your own shot and get a potential finish, or at least open up yourself to get good shots, good positioning. But I still, even though I realize all of this and I've seen the intelligence of Navajo, I'm coping a little bit. But this isn't cope, really. When you think about it, it's not really cope. It's just assessing everything that's been going on. Confidence versus demoralization. Before I want to talk about Jan and Bogdan, that situation over there, let's talk about Rafael Fiziev and Justin Gaethje. Well, recently, Rafael got a win. It seemed like he was on a downward slide, a downward trajectory. Couldn't get a win over Justin Gaethje. He had that injury, and then he came back, fought Justin Gaethje for the second time. And it didn't go his way. He got knocked down a little bit, and I imagined that it kind of killed a bit of steam that he thought he could get going. Not that he had going. He didn't have it going. But he wanted it. He wanted it, and then it was snatched away from him. That hope, that possibility of him returning to form, being the fighter he knew he once could be, because he just can't pass that certain test. But then Justin goes on. He beats Paddy Pimblett for the interim title. And then the White House card, he beats Ilia Topuria and makes his team quit for him while he's sitting on the stool. He has a true Rocky story. In the flesh, it really happened. We saw it. America saw it. Not all of America, but certain portions of America, they definitely saw it. They definitely have their eyes glued to their screen that night. And Rafael, he had his eyes glued to that screen because, if Justin could do this, this is a guy I fought, so I care about what he goes on to do next. I have to follow this guy because, if it's possible, if he can run it back, I would like to know, where does his career end, or where does his greatness end? And it didn't end that night. In fact, it kept on going because he beat Ilia Topuria. And that sparked or inspired Rafael Fiziev, because now he's thinking to himself that, I got beat. I got my ass handed to me. But it doesn't mean it's over for my career. It just means I need to find myself anew. Something of the sort. I need to rebuild. But this is motivating because I knew this guy who people talked down on greatly and was totally the underdog in that fight between him and Ilia. He just did something unbelievable. So why can't I do something unbelievable? And that built confidence in him. At first he was demoralized because Justin, this guy who lost to Charles Oliveira, he lost to Khabib, he lost to those two guys, two champions. He was never going to touch gold. That was the initial perspective, but that changed. And now he found confidence. So how does this relate to Jan and his situation involving Bogdan? Well, Bogdan, those two fighters, they had a draw. But then Bogdan fights a guy that Jan fought way back in 2022, Magomed Ankalaev. He fought Magomed Ankalaev and fought him to a draw in 2022. 4 years ago. Basically, 4 years ago. And then, somehow, someway, it wasn't even a close fight. Even though he had a close fight with Bogdan, Bogdan struggled entirely with Magomed. It was short notice, though, so you had to give him credit. But imagine you're Jan. Imagine you're watching this fight play out, and you're seeing a guy who you were once able to go to a draw with, and it doesn't demolish him, but he doesn't have, there's no way for, or Bogdan's just not able to get off his shots. He has nothing. He is intimidated for some reason. There is this huge intimidation factor, even though Magomed isn't some crazy KO artist or anything like that. He's not up in your grill. He's just very skilled, very reactive, highly, sometimes intelligent. Sometimes he makes unintelligent decisions. But if you're young and you're seeing this, the guy you're struggling with today, struggle with a guy you struggled with a long time ago, or not struggled with, but it was close with. And it wasn't close for Magomed. In this case, it wasn't close with Magomed, but it was close between you and the guy Magomed beat. And once upon a time, it was close between you and Magomed. Things have changed. Injuries, they have taken away from your game. Also, age. You're 43 years now. You've lost a step. There's no doubt about that. That is just how life goes. That is the tale of every single fighter. They just end up losing certain aspects to their game. Mostly physical deterioration. Sometimes mentally, they go a bit AWOL, or they go a bit haywire, something like that. He couldn't stand that. If you're watching this back and you begin to realize your place in the division, and you realize you don't really belong anymore. If you're struggling against Bogdan, you're getting knocked down by him. How could you have confidence going to this home fight, basically, a fight on your home turf? How are you going to have confidence? I'd imagine he'd be demoralized. On top of that, there's the injury between now and then. You know what is funny, though? Carlos Ulberg, that might have been a boost of confidence for Jan, because in 2025, he went to a draw, or not a draw, it was a majority decision, or something like that. It was a very close decision for Carlos Ulberg, who is now the champion. And this happened just a bit before news broke out of him having to undergo surgery. I'm talking about Jan undergoing surgery. So maybe that was a confidence booster, but at the same time, he was dealing with that injury. So two things working against each other. Now the injury and Carlos Ulberg being out of the picture, and it was kind of a fluky situation. You can't really add so much value to it. It doesn't really mean a whole lot. I mean, it does. It's a great win for Carlos Ulberg, and maybe it boosts your ego just a little bit, but then you're shot down to earth again because you got this injury, and then the Bogdan fight or rematch, it's unable to happen, and he has the fight of Magomed, and that looks pretty shitty, and Bogdan, he struggles immensely, and now you have to fight Navajo Sterling on short notice, basically in your home country. Not really, it's Serbia, but close enough. Slav this. And he just gets shut out. Complete demoralization. Just the reality of the fight game. You reach so much, you attain so much, you grab onto every single achievement possible in the game. Not every single achievement, but every single achievement known, and usually rewarded to people. It's something that happens pretty often. Someone always becomes a champion and has a little bit of a reign. Of course, it goes above and beyond for certain fighters, and for Jan, unfortunately, it did not. And now that he fought albino Israel, unfortunately, it might be time to close the curtain. It might be time to reconsider other avenues, perhaps getting into, I don't know, poker sessions, or maybe putting your name behind a sports drink, something like that. Just find a new avenue. I don't know if that's 100% the case. Perhaps he could make a turnaround. It's not out of the question. There is a possibility that Jan could figure things out and have some success in this division. Who knows? It just seemed, in my mind, I'm thinking he had surgery in April. It is now August. August just started. Not a lot of time had passed, but I imagine it wasn't completely reconstructive. It wasn't so invasive, but still, it seems pretty quick to turn around and just have certainty that your body is going to hold up after all those injuries. I would have held off a little bit more if I was Jan, but he did what he did, and unfortunately, it did not work out for him. That being said, Navajo is a pretty good fighter. I still think, the one issue that I have with him is that he's just really slow. I don't see how he's going to be able to handle a Magomed Ankalaev or even Yuri Prohaska. I mean, Yuri is a bit slow and skittish early on in the fight, and he makes a lot of stupid mistakes. He jumps around, and his hands are down, and he gets hit a lot. And maybe his chin's not holding up, but Navajo is pretty damn slow, but he is intelligent and he does have a game plan. Eugene has instilled into him great values and ideas. He's just a great comprehension of the game that where he can get good result early on and take the fight for his own. Of course, he's still a bit reckless himself and might draw his own self into a war, so that might not be so good. But some of these guys at light heavyweight, they're pretty damn quick. Of course, it's undergoing a bit of reconstruction. The scene's looking a bit different as of late. I'm not sure exactly how Navajo fits into this, but this is obviously going to boost up his stats, boost him up stock wise. I just don't know if that's for a good reason because this isn't necessarily even coping now. This is just me looking out for the guy. And the fact that Jan, he had all these injuries. He dealt with all these things holding him back, preventing him from a second coming, you know? And it was easy. It was easy to shut him out, but maybe that was just natural deterioration. That was just the natural process of aging. Eventually, it was going to get this bad. I mean, 1 second you're drawing with Magomed Ankalaev, then, Carlos Albert, he gets a close decision over you. That's only a few years back now. And then the Bogdan fight, and you get knocked down, and it's a draw. And this guy, Bogdan, he can't hold a candle to Magomed Ankalaev, guy who you were drawing with way back when, 4 years ago. And this knee thing happens, and you're trying to have this rematch with Bogdan. It doesn't work out. You have this fight with Navajo Sterling, and you completely get shut out. You get knocked to the other side of the cage, and you get battered, opened up, and finished. This is just unusual. This helps his numbers. This helps Navajo's numbers, but I don't know if this, and if we're looking at it farsighted, if we're being farsighted, I don't know if this is good for him. I don't know what the consequences of this are because it will get him good matchups. Jan's a terrific name, but some of those guys he's gonna have to fight. I mean, Apollo Costa, Robert Whitaker, Yuri Prohaska. Some of these guys, they're gonna give him real trouble, and some of those guys, they're his best buddies, like a Robert Whitaker, potentially even a Carlos Albert. He's very close to a title shot now, which is crazy to say. That Jan fight, it is gold. It is liquid gold in the light heavyweight division. So with that, all I can say is best of luck to both Jan Blachowicz and Navajo Sterling. I wish them great careers, or I wish them a great life, because I don't know how much longer Jan has, and I don't know the trajectory of Navajo's career. I don't know who his immediate opponent is going to be, but just good luck to both of them. It was a fun fight while it lasted, and it was disappointing also because you don't really like to see someone go out like that. You like to see someone fight on their shield, and it just wasn't possible. It wasn't. It was out of the question. Best of luck to both of them. If you like this video, like the video if you like this video. Subscribe to this channel if you want more of this, or if you're desiring more of this. If you want to keep seeing my face, if you want to keep hearing me talk about these type of events or matchups, fights, whatever, this stuff, then subscribe. And if you have something to say, whether it be advice or an opinion, maybe you want to say this video was not good or whatever, maybe make it more extreme. If you want to say something, good or bad, put it in the comment. Please do that. Like, subscribe, comment, and who knows when the next video will drop. Just stay tuned. Something will come. Something will be on the horizon. You just gotta keep a lookout.